So I was driving down the street a couple of years ago and I was listening to the radio and was absolutely jamming, right? It is one of those days, and you guys have had them where you are out, there's not a whole lot of traffic out there, the sun is out, the music is good, and you are having a good time driving down the street. And all of a sudden, the station that I was listening to had a station break, and they announced that I was listening to an oldies station, a classic hip hop station. And it was in that moment that I came to the realization that I was old. I realized that I was old because the music that I was listening to was now on the oldies channel. And it was apparent to me that I didn't realize that I had made that transition. The industry made that transition for me and was then announcing it to me on that station. It blew my mind, to be honest with you, because when I listened to the regular, more popular radio station in that area, none of the music appealed to me. I mean, I'm talking Young Dolph and Young Dro and Future and a bunch of these mumble rappers. I could not connect to that music. But the classic hip hop station, that was my jam, right? Tupac, Biggie, Method Man, all that kind of stuff was my jam. And again, I realized that I was no longer the target demographic for what was being released. The question is, what does this have to do with comics? Stay tuned. Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. As you just heard in that brief intro, it is no longer about me, and it probably isn't about you either. And I say that because when I look at the demographics of the people that watch my channel, many of you are similar in age to me. And what I'm telling you is that it's no longer about us, and that's actually okay. When I read a bunch of the comments online and interact with some people, I hear them complaining about the fact that the movies and the TV shows don't really resonate with them. And I'm specifically talking superhero content. They say that the jokes seemed infantile. They seem young. This is a teenage drama, etc., etc. The reality is that a lot of the content that is being put out isn't necessarily aimed at us because we are no longer the target demographic. We just have to accept the fact that it's not always, and not just about us. And that is actually okay. If we don't embrace this notion of allowing content to be created for other people, what we look like is a bunch of angry old men saying that the world has passed us by. We are standing on our porch yelling at people that come by to stay off our lawn. That is essentially what we are doing. Now, this doesn't mean that the producers in the studios shouldn't put out content that resonates with a broad group, but we have to recognize that potentially the bulk of what is going to come out isn't aimed at us. When you look at some of the demographics of who it is that is actually going to movie theaters, I think it becomes a little more clear why this might be the case. And I was able to find some data on Statistica online. And this is a great resource that I go to pretty often. But what they looked at was the frequency of who it is that goes to the theaters. The data that they have is dated 2022, so it's relatively recent. But when you look at it, what you can see is that the age group that is 18 to 34 will often or sometimes go to the movies 50% of the time. So a lot of them are going to the theaters. The next age group, 35 to 44, only goes to the theaters often and sometimes 45% of the time. And as the age groups increase, or as the age of the population increases, the frequency of going to the movie theaters starts to decline. When you look at 45 to 64, only 40% of the time do they go. 65 and older, it is down to 28%. So when you think about them creating movies to make money, who would you go after? you would potentially go after a younger age group. Because if you think about it, even if you're talking about the 35 to 44-year-old or the 45-year-old, 46, 47 age group, are they really going to the movies for themselves, or are they going to the movies for their children? Are they taking their kids to the theaters? I can tell you for a fact that the times that I have been in the theater over the last few years, by and large, was because of my children. We went to go see Puss in Boots or Frozen or one of these other movies. Very rarely have I been able to actually go to the movies for myself. So again, if you are coming out with a movie, where would you target? You would probably target the 50% of people that are going to theaters, more than likely just for themselves, versus another age demographic where they may or may not be going to the theater for themselves. It makes sense. Now, this doesn't mean that we can't continue to enjoy the movies and the TV shows that come out. We just have to make some allowances for the fact that it's not about us. Sound off in the comment section and let me know what you think about this. It's okay if you don't necessarily agree with me. I'm very comfortable with that, but maybe you do agree, or maybe you have some additional insight, some different ways to kind of think about this thing. Sound off in the comment section and let me know. If you want to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care. By the way, if you're looking for something awesome to read, you might want to check out Marcus and Isolation. These are two titles from my publishing company, Swoldier Publishing. You can find all the information and make purchases on swoldierpublishing.com.
This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yo, should you practice art? Or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it. Not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know? The one that's gonna be a master. The one that's more than a rapper. The one that's an educator. The one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts. He's got the mindset expansive. He understands that his time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan. Straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms of pure souls having them conversations. Synergy and combination.